As some of you may know, this is a program that we've had for many, many years in Manhattan, and we thought, why not bring it to our own home here in Yogaville? So we're just absolutely delighted. And we'd like to get started asking Gurudev first, and then we'll ask the Rabbi the same question. Gurudev, we're wondering if you would please share with us how you first met Rabbi Gelberman, and what drew you two together, and how you've had this long-standing friendship and association for so many years. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
The very first time I had the grand darshan of the Rabbi was in Walmore in Canada, 1966, just a week after my arrival into this country. And there was a retreat going on. At one Friday, Rabbi was celebrating the Sabbath. And he asked me to say something. As a newcomer from India, I knew nothing about Judaism. I don't even know there was a race called Jews. So I thought it is a Christian celebration. I talked all about the sacrifice Christ has made. As I was talking, everybody was looking at me, sort of. Sensing that there is something wrong. I stopped, not talking too much. But luckily, he didn't get angry or annoyed with me. A little bit. But one of the participants, he was ferocious. He was even ready to kill me. But seeing his calmness, even under the situation, I thought he must be a great soul. That was our first introduction to him. Then, of course, it went on evening well, and the retreat was over. And before the retreat even ended, I was called back to Manhattan. So when I came back, I found the same rabbi living in Manhattan, and he allowed us to have the first yoga classes in his own little synagogue. And somehow we clicked on beautifully. And then another Christian, how do you call it? Minister? Or no.
Monk.
David. Monk. Monk. He also, seeing us together, he came, joined us. And then seeing us three together, a Buddhist monk came and joined us. And very soon we are talking each other about our differences and agreements in various religions. And soon we wanted to register a center called Center for Religious Unity or something,
Center for Spiritual Studies.
spiritual unity. And we all went together to register it. When we went to the office, there was a lady who registered the things. He said, "What's happening? Are you together?" "Yes, madam." "I haven't seen it. It looks like a vision to me." Normally you people fight against each other. And he consoled her, saying that we are all talking about God in various ways. And that was more or less the starting. Since then, I don't know what happened. We got hooked up, and probably the rest, Rabbi will be able to say something.
Are you sure it's me you're talking about?
No, one Rabbi Joseph Gelberman.
Yes, we met, I believe, for the first time in Valmarin. I was already practicing yoga then with one of your colleagues who passed away since, Swami Vishnu Devananda. It's interesting, they both come from the same school, but different approaches to life, to God, to people. So the first time I saw him from the distance, I thought it was my father. My father was a handsome man too, you know. And I wondered how come he doesn't wear the yarmulke. And then I realized he's not my father, but he could be my brother. And remember, it's about the time I was almost new in America myself. And in our tradition, the minute we meet someone, especially a scholar, we argue. So I wanted to have an argument with Swamiji. And I tried back and forth, but somehow he didn't respond. He just smiled at me. How can you argue with somebody who smiles? But later on, I realized I learned a beautiful, beautiful message. And that's why I consider him my personal guru, because when you really have the truth, you don't have to argue. Do you hear me? So I would say, if I can use the expression, that we had a soul-to-soul communication. And a few weeks later, I was there with a few people from New York, and we decided he has to come to New York and perhaps settle down. There were other people who worked on the same thing, and sure enough, a few weeks or a few months later, you came to America, to New York, and you have a few classes in my synagogue. And that was beautiful. I tell a story here about your colleague who, when I began to study, I had difficulty with the headstand. I was a little heavier at that time. And he said to me, "Why don't you come to Valmarin and spend the whole month there, and maybe you will learn how to do it." It didn't work. But every time he was showing the headstand, he would ask me to come up and demonstrate. Of course, I fell all over the place. I just couldn't do it. So one day when we had tea together, I said, "Why do you embarrass me? You know I don't know how to do the headstand." He said, "But you are teaching." "What do you mean I'm teaching?" "You're teaching them how not to do it." And that's a good lesson. it helped me tremendously in my life later on when some of my students saw me do something I shouldn't do. So I told them, I do that purposely to teach you, don't do this. And interestingly enough, and sometimes we find in the Bible, probably in the Gita as well, certain things that is almost embarrassing. How come? There are killings going on in the Bible, etc. So there again, my interpretation is, this is to show us, don't you do it. We did it, but don't you do it. So I learned that lesson. We became friends. Swamiji honored us in our home several times. We have a little prasad together. Let me see if I can tell the story. At that time, he was very, very Indian, and he wouldn't eat in my house. So I prepared, what's that thing that I mentioned earlier?
Jello.
What?
Jello. Jello.
Jello. And I marveled at it. Jello, everybody knows what Jello is. It took him 10 minutes to go around with 1 spoon of Jello. Can you picture that? But again, the lesson was, chew it. To eat is a service. Not only, or as we say, a blessing before, but the whole process is a service. To be careful how you put it in there, what you think while you're doing it. Most of our sicknesses, by the way, come about because the gossip that we do while we are eating. It's almost like taking poison in at the same time. So we did a lot of things. This is the first time that America, rather let's say New York, heard, first of all, that there is such a thing as a Swami. You remember when we had a silent weekend somewhere in Connecticut. We had Brother David there, and then we had a Zen master, and they all looked a little funny, to tell you the truth. And with their garments, they've never seen anything like it. For some, you can imagine, I looked normal to them. And they stopped me and they said, when they looked at him, said, who is this man? I say, he's a Swami. What's a Swami? I said, Swami is like a rabbi. What's a rabbi? They didn't know what a rabbi is. So I explained to them as much as I could. I didn't know much either. But that was a silent weekend, and we were walking together, 2 or 3 together, but nobody was talking. This they didn't understand at all. So whenever they stopped me, I took out time to explain the silence, etc., the spirituality behind it. They didn't understand it. So finally I came to an answer. The next time they asked me, why are they talking to each other? I said, this is a deaf and dumb convention. And finally that they understood. That they understood. There is a Hasidic, you might say it's a story or a belief, that when you are born, we know everybody knows this. How many of you heard the word beshert? Beshert. That say the man is told already at birth who his wife will be. And the woman will be told who her husband would be. And during the lifetime, you sort of look for each other. And when it happens, and you have a good life together, you say, beshert, you finally found the person that was given to you. The same thing, Hasidim believe, is true in friendships as well. Even though I was born in Hungary, and Gurudev was born somewhere in India, but it was already stated in whatever book they write this thing, that we are going to meet, and these 2 souls will get together, and as it happens, to bring some light to the world and to teach the love of all mankind. I'm personally very, very, very happy for that. My brother, Gurudev.